Today, we are going to go through your viewer voice messages. We are going to rock and roll here on speakpipe.com. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you want your voice heard, whether it is pre-game, post-game, during the game, could be about nothing related to sports at all. Could just be life questions. Totally up to you. This is your chance to direct what we are talking about in the videos. We have a bunch of voice messages. Some of these are after the Panthers game. Some of these are after Dennis Allen was fired. Some of these are before. Some of these are a couple days ago. So we're going to start with the most recent. Had a commenter say, hey, doesn't it make sense to start with the most recent? Thought about it, and I said, yeah, actually, it kind of does. So we're going to start with the meat father, the man himself. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
Hey, James, the meat father's back. So I like how the Lions did the whole Dan Campbell thing, the man manager thing. But all's great right now. But what's going to happen when Ben Johnson leaves? Yeah, their roster's sweet, so they should be pretty good. But if they miss on their next OC, where do they go from there? Do they just find another one? Does Dan Campbell lose his job? Yada, yada, yada. So my idea, I like the Dan Rizzy thing, the man manager thing. Go for the locker room. Let's go. Hype them up. We think we got our guy in Kubiak. We go get a defensive coordinator. I'm not sold on Salah. I don't know why you love him so much. He was great in San Fran. He was great for a year in New York, but he kind of reminds me of Dennis Allen. Sucked as a head coach. Their defense fell apart this year, the Jets. That's kind of why he got let go. Same reason why Dennis Allen got let go.
Yeah, I mean, look, like Salah, I think he is an absolute suckbag head coach. But defensively, it's like defensive coordinator is kind of difficult because defense is the least consistent or the lesser consistent side of the ball. Like a really good defense can be really, really good one year and then not very good the next year. Defensive players can do the same thing. Like we've seen, I always use Stephon Gilmore as an example, but Stephon Gilmore was the defensive player of the year. And then either the next year or the year after that, he gets released, or traded for like a 6th-round pick. We see defensive players like the best cornerback in the NFL, whoever you think it is, he can be locked down, but he can get absolutely boom roasted, ripped some random play. Right? You never see Patrick Mahomes is never going to be the best quarterback and then the next year get released, right? But you see defensive players do that all the time, and defenses do that all the time. Like the Cleveland Browns. Last year they were a top 5 defense. This year, boom, all of a sudden they're 30th. So defense is kind of weird. The Bengals are a good example where Lou Anarumo was supposed to be the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. All of a sudden, the Bengals can't stop a nosebleed. So defense is a little weird. And I do agree, like with Dan Campbell, a lot of it is the coordinators. And that's something that I've talked about in videos this week where it is a 3-pronged thing. Like you have to have a coach, whoever it is, be able to handle the infrastructure, the operations, the man manager, locker room kind of stuff. You have to have an offensive coordinator or a head coach that's an offensive guy who can do the X's and O's. You have to have a defensive coordinator who can do the X's and O's. And then somebody, whether it's the head coach or a coordinator or a staff, like a whole team, has to be able to do the analytics. Like there is a lot that goes into coaching in the NFL nowadays. It is not how it was when Vince Lombardi was around where it was just big man on big man wins, right? Like football was easy. It was just line up everybody, just go straight forward and try and push the other team further than they push you. Right, that is absolutely not the case anymore. I did find it interesting, maybe comment of the year, but I had a commenter say, "Hey, go take a look at what Dan Campbell's record was in the first 2.5 years." And I'm paraphrasing, but his record was like 17-27. Dennis Allen's is like, I think, was 18-25 in 2.5 years with the Saints. Campbell was worse in his first 2.5 years with the Lions. So it does show that results aren't always what was going on. Now, I would argue that if you watch Dennis Allen's 18-25, you could tell it was a much worse situation than Dan Campbell's. Or Dan Campbell might be getting things right, the results just aren't there, but players are playing hard or the infrastructure is there. Whereas Allen, you could see it was completely failing. So it is important to get the right head coach, but it is as equally as important to land the right coordinators, for sure.
But anyway, you find a defensive coordinator, you got Dan Rizzy, you got your offensive coordinator. But what is the next step when the offensive coordinator leaves? Like, where does it leave the team? And that's what I'm kind of curious to see what happens with Detroit when Ben Johnson leaves. Because when Ben Johnson leaves, you don't know what the offense is going to look like next year in Detroit. Yeah, they're sweet. Their team is sweet. But where do they go?
I think Philadelphia is a good example where you see the Philadelphia team that went to the Super Bowl. Their offense was led by offensive coordinator Nick Sirianni. Sirianni leaves, and it kind of is a mess. Then they bring in Kellen Moore. And Kellen Moore was not there during the brotherly shove era and all that stuff. And what do you see now with Philadelphia? They don't do the brotherly shove nearly as much. Sometimes they do it, but you can already tell like Philadelphia is kind of shifting into a different offense. And is it better? Is it worse? I don't know. But they're an example of what happens when the head coach remains. Most of the roster remains. Virtually all of the roster, except for Jason Kelce, is the same in Philadelphia with the offense. I mean, Saquon Barkley, obviously, but, it's not like they were horrible at the running back position. But Kelce leaves, but the philosophy is totally different. So I would look at that as what happens to a team when a really prolific coordinator leaves. Defensively, same exact thing, right? Jonathan Gannon left. Gannon left and went to Arizona, and Philadelphia was the worst defense in the NFL the year after when they had Matt Patricia in there. That's when they lost to Tampa in the playoffs, and then they immediately try and rectify that. But they are a perfect example of how good coordinators can be for a team, and then what do you do when those coordinators leave?
Who do they get? Like, it could be a complete train wreck next year. It'd be hard to believe because they're so talented, like a million times more talented than New Orleans.
Yeah.
But the next OC might fail, and the Lions might be mediocrity again.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I don't know. I like the Darren Rizzy idea, but then when you lose your offensive coordinator after a couple good seasons, you're basically resetting with just a man manager. Let me know what you think.
100%. I mean, I agree. And it is a different time in the NFL where I think the team turnover, as far as like a team's identity or a team's philosophy, it is much more on a year per year basis now because of how important coordinators are. You can have a head coach somewhere and everything pretty much stay the same regardless of who the coordinators are. Now it's not like that. Now the head coach can remain, but the coordinator leaves, everything changes. So I mean, we saw it with Baltimore. Baltimore, when Todd Monken first came in, Monken was preaching all of this like, hey, we're going to throw the ball a lot more. And we saw that in the playoffs. Monken's first year in the playoffs, Lamar, he ran the ball, like 3 times? And everyone's sitting here like, brother, like, I understand you have your own philosophy and I understand you have your own scheme, but at some point you got to do what you got to do. And Monken is still being, he's still being criticized for his game plan. It was against the Chiefs, right? So it is a coordinator's league, no doubt about it. Great call from the Meat Father. CJ is up next.
Hey, James, I'm about to hit you with a double message.
Oh, okay.
So I just have a question. Who do you think that we should draft? Because currently we have a top 5 pick, and I know it's still a little bit early. We have a lot of football, college football to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because I haven't seen a lot of people say that we should draft like a Cam Ward or Shador Sanders. And I'm not with it. I'm not really with the QBs for at least for this draft. I think the QB class is pretty weak on draft. And I mean, that's no fault of the QBs around. I just don't think that they're ready. I just don't think it's worth it. I think that we should go after a different player and wait until next draft class or the draft class after. And say, for example, if we do go with a Sanders or a Ward, I would rather us have a veteran in place and them to sit behind the veteran for like a couple of years or so, and then they take over. Because I'm tired. I'm so tired of these new QBs getting thrown in these situations where it's like, okay, you're the new starter. We're just going to have to figure out from here, and that's it. We're in win now mode. And then it's like, damn, you ain't even give them a chance. And it's so hard these days because there's not a lot of QBs that are just ready to start right off the bat. It is just super hard.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I think the quarterback class is. Well, I'm a little higher on them than other people are, but I don't think they're like generational. But then again, you never really know. Like, there are generational quarterbacks that you think are a slam dunk, and they aren't. And I mean, even like Andrew Luck, Andrew Luck is heralded as one of the best quarterback prospects of all time. When he was coming out of college, people said that he was the next John Elway. And Andrew Luck did have a decent career. But if you look at what he was expected to do and going first overall, it's like even he was kind of a miss. Like even he was kind of, what did he really deliver the Colts? Like he certainly didn't live up to the hype as the next John Elway, right? So, but then again, there's some quarterbacks you draft in the second, third round, like Russell Wilson, who they exceed all expectations. And I don't think anybody would have said Russell Wilson was ready or was a generational franchise quarterback when he was first drafted. He had to beat out like Matt Flynn. He had to beat out some pretty whatever quarterbacks to even become the starter. So, quarterback's an interesting thing. As far as this draft, here's the deal. The Saints have, and it's going to get worse because a lot of these players are going to leave, like Ramczyk, Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu. We just saw Marshawn Lattimore get traded. Derek Carr's on his way out. If it's not immediately, like at some point he's on his way out. The wide receiver group is horrific. The defensive line, the run defense is terrible. So the Saints need everything. The Saints need anything and everything. So I think you just get the best player, the most impactful player possible. If you think, quarterbacks are kind of whatever, but we have a 99 grade on this offensive lineman, we're pretty sure we have a Hall of Fame level right tackle, whatever. Okay, draft him. Hey, this cornerback is the next Deion Sanders. Like this is the next like number one defensive player of the year kind of guy. Draft him. This linebacker is the next Ray Lewis. This defensive end is the next whatever. Draft them. We have to have, if we have 15 draft picks in the next 2-3 years, we need a majority of those players to come in, play immediately, be impactful, and be Pro Bowl level. So I don't really care what position or how you do it. You got to get the players. And if it means eventually doing what Detroit did and go and trading for a Jared Goff, or if it means doing what Tampa did and going and signing a Baker Mayfield, like at some point we're going to have a quarterback, but I'm not as convinced that there's only one way to get a good quarterback, and that's drafting in the top 5. Like I don't think that's the case. So, it depends also on the coach. It depends on what the coach that we bring in, like what he wants to do. If we go get, like hypothetically, if we were to get Ben Johnson, then I'm much more likely to say, yeah, whatever. If Ben Johnson likes a quarterback, let him draft him. If Ben Johnson loves Shedeur Sanders, okay. I have to trust Ben Johnson knows that he can develop him, so it's tricky, but we are in a good spot as far as like we need everything. So the only way you can go wrong is if you completely miss on the player. But if we get an all-pro linebacker, cool, works for me. We just got to have impact.
Hey, James, hope you're doing good. So I was just watching the Rizzy's interview that he just had. And I got to say, he gives just a good amount, like, not a good amount, just a little bit like a Dan Campbell type of vibes.
Him and Campbell coached together twice. Very similar. Very, very similar type of, I think, how they view the game. Now, any coach that's like Rizzy, a special teams coordinator, a roster guy, a locker room guy, they're going to get compared to Campbell, right? And Campbell's a weird thing because when people say we need our version of Dan Campbell, it's kind of unfair because the version of Dan Campbell is also, it's like, what did Detroit do? Yeah, they have Dan Campbell, which is an identity, culture, locker room setter, but they also had multiple incredible draft picks. They also have an incredible offensive coordinator, so like the Dan Campbell package, yeah, hell yeah, every team wants the Dan Campbell package, but it's much more than just a rah-rah guy.
And I want to know, how do you feel about he's a strong candidate for being the next head coach. And I know we're not all big on doing retries, hiring within, and we want to find something new. But what if genuinely it really might be the case that Rizzy is that brand new, is that Dan Campbell, that manager,
it might be.
Who just needs a OC and a DC to run and we need someone to run the analytics, and he's just that type of person. Which I'm not mad at, because that seems like what is a lot we are heading towards of in the new NFL.
Yeah, agreed.
But I just want to know what your opinion on that, because I don't know. From his interview, it gave light. It gave, in my opinion, it really just didn't give off bullshit. As you know, it gives off like how when we first started hearing of what Kubiak and Andrew Janoko does,
Yeah.
we believe it because the way they're talking, it doesn't sound like the same old bullshit. It sounds like that they learned from Kyle Shanahan type of thing. And that's what I get from Rizzy. But Rizzy, in his own way, has his own words and his own vision. And I really think that could be what we need.
I agree. Like if we play well down the stretch, and if Kubiak shows like okay, this guy's a good offensive coordinator, and Rizzy has the team playing hard, and Rizzy has that infrastructure you want to see, and if we do see Rizzy, go for it correctly on fourth down, if we want to see him make the correct decisions on 2-point conversions, if we see some of that, then I'm totally fine with just getting a defensive coordinator, letting Rizzy do it next year, build out the roster. I'm fine with that, But he hasn't coached yet. Like we don't know. This is all hypothetical. This could completely change if we see just a horrible output from the game against the Falcons. So we'll see. But what I will tell you is I'm giving Darren Rizzy every opportunity to win the job. I think he has a pretty decent chance to be the next head coach, depending on how this all goes down the stretch. But we need a lot to happen for sure. All right, Javon, you are next.
What's good, James? Just started watching you this season. I'm going to cut straight to the point. We need to let the veterans go. Every contract we can get anything from, we need to go ahead on and do it now that DA is going. I want to keep Kubiak. I think he didn't really get a good chance to show exactly how his offensive scheme can play out. We need to focus on draft picks. We could get a few pieces here and there, but if they're not really going to be impactful, we're just going to need to just get good draft picks. Focus on building a solid line, get our cap space good. So maybe 2, 3, 4 years from now, we can actually go ahead on and get a franchise quarterback in the draft or out of free agency. Just have the space in the cap to do it. But yeah, it's going to be a rough stretch of years of games, and as a Saints fan, it's just tough. I wasn't there for the bag days, but I've been here since Sean Payton Drew Brees came around, so this is new for me, and I'm just appalled and speechless, but I feel like that's what we need to do.
No doubt. No doubt. And I think that's what they are going to do. The Marshawn Lattimore trade, it was signaling that. The Marshawn Lattimore trade was signaling that we're interested in draft picks. We're interested in young players and cheap contracts and getting the fact that the Lattimore contract did not offer cap relief was all you needed to know. The fact that they said, nope, we just want draft picks. That's it. And it's a telltale sign for the franchise. And yeah, there's no doubt about it that the next 2 years, that's what we're going to be doing. A lot of these contracts naturally expire, whether that is players retiring or players walking. In the next 2 years, a lot of them are 2026 is that like natural expiration year. So yeah, for the next 2 years, we will be clearing out cap and clearing out contracts and getting draft picks and emphasizing the draft. Now, what I would caution is the belief that this is going to be 2, 3, 4 years. This can change quickly, a la the Commanders, a la the Bengals. It can change overnight where you get a generational player, you get the right draft class in there, all of a sudden you've got 5, 6 players that are all pro level players, high impact players on rookie deals. All of a sudden the Saints can be real good. So at the Commanders, it looked like this is going to be a long kind of rebuild. Turns out it was not, right? So it could, if you miss on those draft picks and all that, but depending on how you restructure this team from now until week 1 of next year, it doesn't have to be a 4-year rebuild. So I would keep your chin up. Keep your chin up. We just got to nail some of these picks, and who knows? Like the Texans, Long rebuild? No. It took one off season. Commanders long rebuild? No. Right? So it doesn't have to be long, but we are absolutely in a rebuild. Good call. Divine Eternity, you are next.
What's up, James? I know it's been a while. I hope everything's well. I hope you're well. I hope the family's well. I hope the blood pressure is low.
Blood pressure is always high at my age. No doubt about that.
Because for the last 7 weeks, I've been living on planet cool nerves. Hashtag fire Dennis Allen.
Yep.
But I'm not letting Kubiak off the hook. Imagine this. We're starting a music group and we say, okay, we're not getting the traction that we want. So let's go and get that Tito guy. He's available. Let's go and get Tito Jackson. He's the brother of the great Michael Jackson. Let's get him.
Yeah.
We go and get Tito.
Okay.
Now all of a sudden the group has to disband because
what was Tito's big song? Dynamite? Did he do Dynamite? Someone double check me there.
Because we're still a failed faction. And that just goes to show that success doesn't come from getting people who's been around people who had success.
That is true. That is the Pete Carmichael effect, where, oh, well, Pete Carmichael's with Sean Payton. Surely he can do the same thing. Not always the case.
Like, it doesn't matter if it's your nephew. It doesn't matter if it's your brother, your uncle, your aunt. Results are results. And the Saints right now, they just don't know how to win. It doesn't matter if we're averaging 7.5 yards a carry, because a lose is a lose and the results are there. They're not winners. So at this point, I just feel like, hey, 2006, let's just Uno reverse and just tear it down, start over.
What I will say to the Kubiak thing is that, well, for Kubiak, it does matter if we are averaging 7 yards a rush or 7 yards a play and losing. Because the losing thing, at some point, like Dennis Allen, we assume, was a big problem of the infrastructure of this team, was a big problem when it came to timeouts or game, situational spots, or everything down to just how they practiced, how they, everything. So I think Kubiak has done some really good things. Like this offense, even in losses, the offense at times was like, okay, well, when he had his pieces, even like against the Chargers, the second he gets some linemen back, and that's what Spencer Rattler. You look at the Chargers box score and it's like, well, okay, the offense we ran the ball well. Okay. And then you look at the Panthers. Like we had 450 yards of offense. Alvin Kamara had 160 yards rushing. Yes, it was against the Panthers. So, yeah, I mean, there's an asterisk. But when he does have his pieces, Kubiak has looked okay at times. Now, he doesn't get a full pass. No doubt about that. Like, there's been I thought he was very conservative against the Chargers. I thought some of the play calling was bad. Even like the 4th and 4, that from 1,000 feet up, that play looks terrible. 4th and 4, it's a fade to Cedric Wilson. But then you go and look at the play, and you're like, well, this was obviously a pass to Juwan Johnson. Juwan was wide open in the middle of the field. So is that Kubiak's fault? Is that Carr's fault? I don't know. But if Kubiak can show us the rest of the season, starting in Atlanta, if we're seeing like, hey, and remember, guys, the number to look for, yards per play, you want 5.5-ish yards a play is considered like an above average offense, okay? If we're kind of consistently in that 5.5, 6 yards per play, 4.5, 5 yards per rush, big time total yards, big time red zone production, then I'm okay with Kubiak. So I think he's had a weird year where he set his expectations super high because of the first couple of games. Then a ton of injuries happened, whether it was the offensive line or Carr or whatever. Then Allen, like we saw the timeout shenanigans. We've seen the decision-making shenanigans of like punting it on fourth and 1, So the jury is still out on Kubiak, but I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt for the remaining stretch of games here. All right, Chris Swanson, you're up next.
Hey, James, this is Chris back at it with you, my guy. You're the face of the franchise, the best in New Orleans Saints.
Unbelievable.
I just like to tell you, I'm at work right now, but I just received the best news I could have received today.
Shout out to everybody watching during work. I mean, that's what I like to see. Watching on the man's dollar That's what it's all about.
Dennis Allen has been fired.
See ya.
We literally told him, Dennis, you've done a horrible job. You're fired. Get the hell out of here. And it is time to make the Saints great again. This is one of the best days in franchise history. I am so excited for our future.
I like to think that Chris is actually working. Like, he's behind the counter. Like, I'm thinking he's not like in a back office. He's not in a back room. He's like right in the middle of the showroom. There's customers everywhere, and he's just letting it rip.
Enthusiastic about our future. I'm just so happy this man is gone. This man is the worst coach in NFL history, and we finally did it. Mickey Loomis finally
Does he work at a racetrack? Did you just hear that acceleration?
had the courage to say, Dennis, get the hell out of here. You're horrible. We can't win with you. This is amazing. And it is time to rebuild our roster. It is time to rebuild our coaching staff after this year. Hopefully we get a Mike Vrabel or a Ben Johnson, someone that can create a culture, a good culture. This is just amazing news. I am so happy. I'm so proud as a fan. I'm just in shock, but in a good way. I can't believe we actually did it. Like, I'm about to cry happy tears. Like, this is just amazing, man. Like, this is amazing. How are you feeling about this news, Mr. James?
I was thrilled. No doubt about that. I was thrilled. A huge step in the right direction for the franchise. Obviously, things had gotten to a point where it had to happen. There was nothing that we could do. I will say, word on the street is, for all of you Gail Benson haters, word on the street is this was a 100% Gail call. Gail made the move and said, get him out of here. So for all of you saying she should sell the team, that was quite the tongue twister. It's like she sells seashells on the seashore type situation. Chris, back to back at it.
Hey, James, this is Chris back at it with you, my guy. And this was an embarrassing loss. This is the worst loss we've had in years.
So he's talking about the Panthers game. I think you can make a case that it is the worst loss in, like the last 30 years for the Saints. Not emotionally, not the stakes being the highest or any of that, but just if you look at the raw numbers and you look at the probability, it's a loss that has never happened before in NFL history. That's a fact, Jack. The first time an NFL team has ever lost a game in that game state with the amount of yards we had, the rushing yards, the turnover battle, everything. So I don't think it's crazy. It's no hyperbole or hyperbole, as some of my friends would say. It is no hyperbole that this could be the worst loss in NFL history.
I honestly don't understand how we somehow lost to Bryce Young. The Panthers are garbage.
Fun fact. So Bryce Young, so EPA, which is like expected value over average or whatever, this is the second time in his career he had a positive EPA. That's how bad Bryce Young is.
They are.
And he started off the game 8 for 10.
Garbage. I mean, this is just ridiculous. We've lost 7 in a row. We've hit rock bottom. We can't win anymore. It's over. I want Dennis Allen out that damn door. I want his ass out of New Orleans.
He got his wish.
He sucks. He's
True.
the worst coach in NFL history.
Yep.
And I don't want to hear his comments of I'm hurting for the team. I'm hurting for the city. I'm hurting for that locker room. He is the one that destroyed the culture of the New Orleans Saints.
He's a big part of it.
I have no words to say. This is a travesty. This season is a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
And we just need to go through a rebuild at this point. There is no saving the Saints pass. And we need to do it. We need to get rid of the contracts that's not producing. We need to get rid of the players that are absolutely doing absolute shit. And we just need to rebuild. This is ridiculous. Like, I can't believe as a fan. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, the only thing worse than being a Saints fan is being a Pelicans fan. So, but luckily Chris is getting his wish. We are in a rebuild, and Dennis Allen was shown the door. Cam, you are next, my friend. Cameron 2255.
James, I just got out of the stadium.
Oh my God. This is after the Panthers game, and he was there. Lord, he was at the game. This is respect to be able to even talk after watching that game live in person. Wow.
I put on my paper bag. I wrote "Fire Dennis Allen" on it.
Remember, if you're going to do the paper bag thing in the stands, make sure it's a paper bag and not a plastic bag. If you try and wear the plastic bag, you will not see the fourth quarter. Okay, you will see the fourth quarter, at the big stadium in the sky.
Then I went out in front of the stadium
Yes.
and I found the nearest jazz band that was playing with my paper bag that said "Fire Dennis Allen" on it on my head, and went out and I jigged in front of the jazz band.
Wow. This shows you just the complete psyche break. When you leave a game, you're wearing a brown paper bag on your face and you just start dancing in public. I mean, that is the kind of earth-shattering, reality-shattering things that this team can do to somebody.
White boy jigging with the paper bag on his head that says "Fire Dennis Allen." It's the first time in my life that I've ever done such a thing.
I mean,
That is the point
that's rock
that we're
bottom.
at.
Yeah, that's ugly.
I've come to accept it.
Yeah.
I've come to find humor in it. Although I'm disappointed because I spent $400 on my front row 50-yard line tickets today.
If it makes you feel any better, there's a lot worse ways to spend $400. Like if anybody plays EAFC or FIFA, FIFA points. I know if my boy Bucks is listening to this, Bucks, I can't even imagine the thousands of dollars he has spent on FIFA points to open packs on Black Friday or Christmas morning, and just to get a bunch of 83 overall players and then go 2-17 in weekend league. So,
That is all. Thank you, James.
God.
Goodbye.
I mean, I feel like I was listening to a call from Shutter Island. I mean, Cam, respect. I hope. I mean, he might be like in that movie Split after watching something like that. So, Cam, I hope you're still on the in the right state of mind. I hope things have worked out, and let's get him against the Falcons, my man. Great call, fantastic call. Boots on the ground. Grizzo, you're next.
You salute. Salute to you, James. I really can't even glaze you the right way. Pause.
Damn.
I mean, the Saints have got me feeling that bad. I mean,
Yeah.
I really don't even want to talk about the recent games. I just, I'm trying to find something I can hang my hat on, something that I know is a staple of the New Orleans Saints, something I know they can build on for at least the future. I mean, that's sort of my question. I mean, where do you see the Saints in the foreseeable future? I mean, I'm looking for something. I mean, we got our coaching staff, we got the players on the field. I mean,
Right.
struggles at almost every single position group. You got the ownership staff. I mean, what do you see in the team that you can sort of say, okay, you know what? I guess back to basics. We're going to start where we're good at. We're going to. I mean, the Saints don't draft well. I don't. The coaching staff isn't the best. You don't have a ton of young guys. You got some. I mean, that's, and like I said, you can't even get the right type of young guys to come in here. I mean, that's really my question. I mean, what do you see to give me a little faith? I guess, man, I'm out.
All right, so I kind of cheat a little bit because he was recording this before the Dennis Allen firing and the Marshawn Lattimore trade. But what you can look forward to now is that we are in a fully new chapter of the New Orleans Saints, and for the first time since pre-Sean Payton, like we are getting a completely new New Orleans Saints team. Like there is no holdovers, no Pete Carmichael, no Dennis Allen, no former players and all that stuff. It is new. I mean, there is a good chance that for the second time in NFL or second time in New Orleans Saints history, we'll draft a quarterback in the first round. The only other time being Archie Manning. So this is uncharted territory for the Saints. If they do take a Shedeur Sanders, a Cam Ward, a whoever your quarterback of choice is in the first round, it will be the first time since Archie Like, think about how rarefied air that is, that the Saints are in this space to fully rebuild, whether it was Gail Benson forcing Mickey Loomis's hand or not. As far as the draft, yeah, recently this has been a bad drafting team, but 2024 draft we would assume has been pretty good. Kool-Aid, Talise Fuaga, 2016, 2017, two of the best draft classes in franchise history and maybe even in NFL history, definitely back-to-back years. So it might not be as bad as we think, especially if you're talking about Dennis Allen leaving, because a lot of those wasted draft picks were what? Defensive linemen who didn't work out. And so we're assuming Dennis Allen is the one saying, hey, I want this guy. I want this look. I want this high evaluation. I want this guy to fit my scheme. We would assume that's out. So the only thing to be excited about is the idea of a brand new start. Are we going to be like the Commanders who, boom, 1 year you get the quarterback, you get the right people in there, boom, all of a sudden you're 7-2. Are we going to be like the Texans where all of a sudden, boom, you draft a quarterback, you get a couple of guys, you get the right coaches in there, and then you're flying. You're one of the best teams in the conference. Will we be like that? Will we be a team like the Bengals who you find your franchise quarterback, the next year you find a franchise wide receiver, bam, you go to the Super Bowl. Like, it's in front of us. We have to make a lot of right decisions, but you can be excited that we are fully ripped the Band-Aid off and we are fully rebuilding. Chris, back-to-back to finish us off.
Hey, James, this is Chris back at it with you, my guy. I respect you. The hard grind, hard work, dedication. I respect you 100,000%.
No doubt.
But yeah, Alvin Kamara signed for 2-year extension. I love that for the Saints because...
Yeah, I like the deal. I mean, a lot of people are like kind of lukewarm on the deal. I think it's great. I think Kamara's played really, really well this year. You do have to factor in like having that voice in the locker room, having a leader, having a true like New Orleans Saint there. I think signing Kamara was a no-brainer. I have nothing negative to say about the deal.
He can be a bridge player from the past Saints teams to the future.
100%.
I think he's building a rapport for Rattler, and I think he's he could build Rattler's confidence up with the screen game. Kubiak loves the screen game, so if he could do that on a weekly basis, Rattler could build up some rapport with him and build up confidence. But Olave and Shaheed also add young pieces to that offense. I think we need a good tight end because I don't trust Foster Moreau and Jawan.
I mean, we need a good everything. Like, we need a good everything on the roster currently.
Johnson as much. I think Jimmy Graham would have been a better option, but we didn't really use him last year. And overall, I've lost respect for Dennis Allen. He's a bad situational coach. If we lose to Carolina, like I said in the last message I sent, he should be on an extremely...
Spoiler alert, we did, and he did get fired.
It's just scorching hot seat. Let's just put it like that. But I'm thinking back, did we make a mistake with bringing in a car and letting Winston walk? Because Winston did go off for the Browns against the Bengals. He did have a good performance, and he would have been a cheaper option. Did we make a mistake there? Like, I think we did, but maybe you have a different opinion on that.
No, I don't think so. And my, how fast that can change. Am I right? Jameis Winston the first week, people were saying, look at this. Cleveland's got their guy. Jameis Winston the second week. Well, never mind. Right? So that is the very knee-jerk reaction that is the NFL, right? Like, you look good one week, you look bad the next week. Joe Flacco, same thing. Joe Flacco, Indianapolis is calling for him. Then in primetime Sunday Night Football, he looks terrible. So, But no, I don't think Jameis is the answer. I think Jameis is he could probably start on a bunch of teams, but I don't think he's the answer. I think even in that Ravens game, yeah, they beat the Ravens, and yeah, he threw for over 300 yards, but he had about 4 dropped interceptions, including the interception to Kyle Hamilton at the end of the game where Kyle dropped, and if he catches that, the game's over. The comeback never happens. So context is king. Don't forget in those situations, but hindsight's 2020, but obviously, like the Carr experiment will go down as a failure. I mean, we're 2-7. Dennis Allen got fired. Dennis Allen was Derek Carr's guy. Derek Carr is Dennis Allen's guy. So didn't work out. Is it all Derek Carr's fault? No, but it is what it is. So we brought him in, didn't work. Who cares? Move on to the next one. So I have no ill will towards Carr. I'm not going to sit here and say Carr was shit, but as far as the results and what his tenure delivered, whether it's 10 years, 2 years, or 3 years, or whatever. But it just didn't work out for a bunch of different reasons.
Hey, James, this is Chris Swanson, your favorite commenter on SpeakPipe. You had a man, the myth, the legend, the face of the franchise, the best in New Orleans media by far. In this Saints-Chargers game, let's get out the way, the only positive things was J.K. Dobbins gave me double digits in one of my fantasy leads. He ran over our defense. And
man, this was all the way back to the Chargers game. I didn't realize we had one hanging out there. My apologies for not getting to this sooner. I will say the Saints did kind of keep Dobbins and the Chargers running backs in check.
Alvin Kamara gave me 17 somehow, which is incredible. But yeah, man, 8 points is not cutting it.
No,
obviously, 2 of them came from a safety. Amen to Taysom Hill for that. But Spencer Rattler was unfairly benched in the third quarter.
I don't think it was unfair. I think Rattler was not given any help by Kubiak, but I think he was. I mean, I think that the game was out of hand. He didn't have the feel of the game. I don't think it was unfairly benched. I think it might have been unfair as far as the game plan, but they should have went to Haener. Haener was no better than Rattler.
He can't help his receivers have butterfingers and they're dropping passes left and right. And Jake Haener don't even look that good. So
yeah,
I think Spencer Rattler looks better. He looks more promising than he is the future. But overall, we had the 6th overall pick. And by the way, if we lose to Carolina, Dennis Allen better have a scorching hot seat, because if we lose to Carolina, they're a piss poor team already. So that would be bad for him. And we've got the 6th overall pick as we stand. So I think we should pick a Travis Hunter or an Ashton Jeanty, somebody like that. But my question to you is,
see, Jeanty would be a waste because you're drafting a guy to split carries with Kamara. We need way more impact than that immediately. We need way more than just some rotational running back.
With the 6th overall pick, if we do get a top 5 pick per se even, who would you want to draft, in your opinion? Who would you want us to draft?
Yeah, I mean, I've covered this a couple times in this episode, but just the highest impact player. Find me the all-pro. I don't care if it's a linebacker, a defensive end, a guard, a tackle, a wide receiver, or a quarterback, whatever. Find me the all-pro. Find me the 10-year vet. Find me the guy who's going to be a high-impact player. Find me Amon-Ra St. Brown. Find me whoever. Brock Bowers. Find me the guy. Find me the guy who's going to change the game. Find me the Aiden Hutchinson. However you're going to do it. Find me the all-pro. That's who I would draft. So I'm not stuck on it has to be a this, it has to be a that. The only thing it has to be is impactful. The only thing it has to be is a really good player. So that's the challenge. But it has to be that for every round. First 3 rounds for sure. It cannot be you cannot miss. You cannot, even Brian Rizzy, who's a goodish at times player, he is not good enough of what we need. And he's okay. You could say he isn't even that bad of a player, but he is not impactful enough for what the Saints need for this rebuild that we're entering. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your calls, per usual. I'm releasing this a few hours before the Falcons game, so call before the game, after the game, all that stuff. Load it up, and I will respond to your questions. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video.